I still hear his voice when I think about it, sharp and casual, like he was saying something harmless, something obvious. "Who let this kid into my class?" The room laughed, not loud, just enough to let me know I was alone, and before I even stood up before he picked up the chalk, I knew this wasn't going to be about math. It never really is it? It's about who people think belongs and who they think slipped in by mistake. My name's Marcus Reed. I was 19, a second-year student at Northbridge College, sitting in the back row where I always sat, last seat by the aisle, close to the door. That was my spot. You learn to pick spots like that when you grow up being watched a little too closely. I kept my head down, did, just enough, stayed quiet. Not because I wasn't capable, but because I was. Sounds backwards, I know, but if you've lived it, you get it. Professor Calder was legendary. 30 years teaching tenure wrapped around him like armor papers, published grants stacked the kind of man who could end a career with a raised eyebrow. His class, Advanced Structures, was known as a filter. He liked to say it separated real thinkers from pretenders. Funny how the pretenders always seemed to look like me. That morning he stopped mid-lecture, squinted toward the back, and pointed straight at me. "You, stand up." 40 pairs of eyes turned. Some curious, some annoyed, some already entertained. I stood. My palms were calm, my heartbeat wasn't. Calder smiled like he'd been waiting for this moment all semester. "Tell me," he said, "did you get into Northbridge on talent, or did someone feel generous on a form?" A few people chuckled. Not everyone. Enough. He talked about scholarships, neighborhoods, how impressive it was that the system kept finding ways to surprise him. Then he turned to the board and picked up the chalk like a weapon. "I've got a problem," he said, "one I save for special occasions. Unsolved at this level. Too hard for most graduate students. If anyone here can solve it, automatic A. Miss it, and you lose a full letter grade. No second tries." The room went quiet. Nobody moved. He scanned the rows, then looked back at me. "You should try. Let's see what you've got." As I walked down the aisle, I felt that familiar pressure, the kind that says, "Don't mess this up, don't prove him right." He handed me the chalk, leaned in, and whispered, "Don't worry, this won't take long." That was the joke. The equation filled the board symbols stacked like a dare. And there it was, sitting right in front of me, something I hadn't seen in years but never really forgot. I didn't learn math the normal way. When I was 12, I found a box in my aunt's garage. Dusty, taped shut, my name scribbled on the side in a handwriting I barely remembered. Inside were notebooks, my father's. He died when I was 7 and nobody talked about him much. They just said he was smart and unlucky. Those notebooks told a different story. Page after page of ideas, sketches, half-finished proofs. I didn't understand most of it at first, but I could feel it like music you don't know the words to yet. By 15, I was translating his thoughts into my own. By 17, I was solving problems my teachers didn't even assign. By 19, I was hiding all of it, on purpose. I learned early that being impressive could be dangerous. The equation Calder wrote was in those notebooks. Same structure, same twist. In the margin, my father had written a note I never forgot. "Try it sideways." I started writing. Someone laughed behind me. Calder leaned back, arms crossed, enjoying the show. 30 seconds passed, then a minute. The room changed. Chairs creaked. People leaned forward. Calder stopped smiling. My hand moved without hesitation. I wasn't thinking about him or the room or the grade. I was thinking about my father at the kitchen table, coffee gone cold, pencil tapping, telling me that patterns always tell the truth. When I finished, I stepped back. That's it. Calder stared at the board like it had betrayed him. He checked one line, then another. His jaw tightened. "That's not possible," he said. Someone clapped, then another. He raised his hand too late. "Class dismissed," he snapped. His eyes locked on me. "You, stay after." The hallway buzzed by the time I left. People whispered my name like it had just appeared out of nowhere. I went home and tried to ignore it. 2 days later, an email landed in my inbox. Subject: Academic Review Required. I read it 3 times before it sank in. Cheating. That was the word they didn't say but meant. Calder's office smelled like old books and confidence. He spoke calmly, professionally, like this was all routine. "Your performance was unusual," he said. "Too polished, too fast. I have concerns." When I told him I learned the method from my father's work, his eyes flickered. Just for a second. "Convenient," he said. "A source who can't speak for himself." He filed the complaint and wished me luck. That night I called my aunt. When I told her Calder's name, she went quiet. Then she told me to come over. There were things I needed to know. In that same garage, she opened another box, one I'd never seen. Letters, official ones. My father had been a student at Northbridge. Calder had been his advisor. They worked on the same problem. My father solved it first. Calder published it. When my father tried to fight back, he was accused of stealing his own work and pushed out. He never recovered. That's what broke him. The hearing was scheduled during winter break. Empty campus, closed offices, no audience. I almost quit. Then I found a letter in the notebook box, sealed, written to me. "If you ever have to choose, my father wrote, between disappearing and standing up, stand up. Even if it costs you, especially then." I reached out to Dr. Elaine Porter, one of the few professors who didn't orbit Calder. She knew my father. She knew the story. And she was done being quiet. She arranged an independent evaluation. 3 mathematicians. No Northbridge politics, just proof. The test was brutal. Hours of problems. No shortcuts unless you truly understood them. I did. When it was over, one of the evaluators pulled me aside. He'd been there years ago. He knew what Calder did. He'd been afraid to speak. Not anymore. At the hearing, Calder talked about standards and integrity. I talked about truth. Dr. Porter presented the notebooks, the dates, the letters. The evaluator testified. Calder's face drained of color. For the first time, he had nowhere to hide. The verdict came quietly. Charges dismissed. Investigation opened. Months later, Calder's papers were retracted. His title stripped. My father's work restored under his name. It didn't bring him back, but it gave him back something that mattered. I stayed at Northbridge. I stopped sitting in the back. Now, when I see someone there, quiet, invisible, I remember what it felt like, and I make sure they know someone sees them. So, here's my question for you. Have you ever been judged before you spoke? Written off because of where you came from, how you looked, how you sounded? Was it right, or was it just convenient for someone else? Drop your thoughts below. Argue it out. Tell your story. Because these moments don't just disappear. They stack up. And sooner or later somebody has to decide whether they're going to stay quiet or stand up.